It's time we take a trip and visit the legend of Hell's Gate. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore, and sometimes on this podcast, I like to revisit independent films that you may have missed. One of those is The Legend of Hell's Gate, which I happen to have the writer, director, and star of The Legend of Hell's Gate, Tanner Beard here, which is, I love all that. You've got a lot of hyphenates, but that's kind of normal when you're a creative in entertainment, especially in indie film. You have to wear a lot of hats. But in addition, it's not on your Chiron, you run the Mammoth Film Festival, which I have attended, and it's an amazing film festival.
Yeah, so, you've had amazing panels out there, hosted amazing panels out there, and you got to come back. We feel like you started with us. You're an OG Mammoth effort.
It's so fun, and there's a lot of like fundraising for charity that happens there. The bowling event is incredible. The fact that you're in this like beautiful environment in the snow in Mammoth, just the drive up there, the trip is so amazing because I don't know, just it's something. It's always good to get out of Los Angeles. You don't never have to twist my arm.
Yeah.
So yeah, like before we talk about the movie, like Mammoth, like what inspired like wanting to create a film festival? Because that is, I mean, it's similar in terms of production. I mean, there are similar aspects. Having like done a film festival myself and made movies, there are aspects that are similar. But what inspired like wanting to do a festival in Mammoth, which is such a beautiful vacation resort area?
That's funny that these two things we're talking about actually kind of they coexist with each other. So
Right.
Legend of Hell's Gate was the first movie I ever made, but Mammoth Film Festival was the very first film festival I ever went to when I was like 23 years old. And I'll explain. So obviously I'm a film festival rat now. Been to, lucky enough to be to Venice and, Berlin, South by Southwest, Sundance, you name it. And it's been the last decade of my life. But before that, my very first one, I'd made my very first short, which was called Mouth of Caddo, The Legend of Hell's Gate. And I was like trying to find anywhere to show this thing because it was like it was like a sizzle reel before sizzle reels existed, but it was a 30-minute short. So it didn't really make it to be a short. It was a showcase to say like, hey, a 23-year-old kid can try to go off and tell this story. That's a Western, you know what I mean? I needed a piece to show that I could direct this thing. And lo and behold, the only film festival that took it back in the day was this brand new festival called Mammoth Film Festival. Went up to Mammoth. I had the best experience ever. Fell in love with the town, much as a lot of people have that have come to our festival. I've seen it for the first time and just been like, I get it now. This could be the next, big thing. But anyway, I was immersed in that immediately, and it helped me. That festival helped me get my film to the next level. I made that short, which became my first feature ever made, which is the one that we're about to talk about, 10-year anniversary, which is crazy to even think time has flown by that fast. But it's very crazy and cool that we might do the 10-year anniversary of Legend of Hell's Gate director's cut that I'm working on at the next Film Festival. It depends if we can find a good night. I don't want to take somebody's spot, who may be in competition or something. But if we can find an afternoon screening or something off campus, so to speak, I would love to bring that 10-year anniversary up there. But Mammoth Film Festival dissolved in about 2010, and I always just kind of paid attention to it. And I was like, man, it's too bad that film festival is not going anymore. I would love to take that name, acquire that name, and go build it with the knowledge that I have after being a festival rat for a decade. So long-winded story, but I felt it was important to tie those in together. And then I was able to take over Mammoth Film Festival in a brand new light in 2018, which you were there for.
It's a great festival. I've attended, God, two, three times now.
Yeah, two of them.
Yeah. It's really has its own personality. It's my personal favorite type of festival in the sense that it's small. So what you do is you get to know all the filmmakers. It's not like a Sundance or even a South by Southwest where it's so large that you lose that sense of community because there are like only a smaller number of like bars and restaurants and like party events that you just see the same people. So it's like, hey, where are we off to next?
Yeah, and you're like, hey, that was Joe Jonas right there. Or,
right, exactly. Yeah.
So cool.
Right?
Like, Jessica Alba's on the mountain snowboarding right now.
Exactly. And there are like Dennis Rodman was at one of the
Dennis Rodman.
That was crazy, man.
Shortly it was right when the Bulls documentary came out too.
Right.
For like to know that like Dennis Rodman was back on the map at that time and just happened to choose Mammoth Film Festival. And of course it's, I feel every effect of it. I'm sure people are like, yeah, of course he'd be there. But I'm like, it's cool, so cool that Rodman's here during this Bulls, resurgence on the media. So
I think that was the last in-person film festival in 2020 that I went to was your festival, and then right after it was literally like within weeks.
A week, a week. To my knowledge, we were the last film festival to go in 2020. There may have been like one or two other ones that I didn't hear about, but from what I heard, they were like, yours was the last film festival to be able to do what you guys did because everything was shut down within 6 days after that. So it's been like the 5th or something of March. Yeah,
it was weird. And then like, South by Southwest announced that they were, just going to do at that time, virtual events were not a thing. They ended up doing something where Amazon played a bunch of their films and featured South by Southwest movies.
Can you imagine them having to act so fast to figure that out?
Oh, God.
When they're like, we have to pull the plug on one of the biggest and probably up to date would have been their biggest film festival of their history, and then have to take all of the technology available and be like, okay, here's how we can still do it. Like, God, hats off to them, man. They're such a big company. It might like the decision making that's good for everybody probably gets lost in some of that. But man, what a tough business that was for them.
Well, but what I'm hearing is when it comes to 2022, everything's going to be in person. There's not going to be this. By then, people will be fully vaccinated. Yeah. I've gotten the vaccine myself. It hurt my arm for a day.
Yeah.
It was not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
You look all right to me.
I'm okay. Yeah, I don't like to get shots, but I will do it. But no, it's and I'm sure you guys will be back in 2022. You have to be.
That's
you got to figure out the date.
We're looking to announce our actual date of when we're going to start next week. So right now we're just making sure it's the best time that we figure for everybody to be able to come out. So everybody's going to be doing stuff. Everybody's going to be back in 2022 in theory right now, and we're hoping and praying for that. But it looks like it's going to happen. We're really starting to take a turn for the better. Things are coming back to life. So the problem is there's so much to do. Like there's Super Bowls in LA, and it's an extra week late. There's so many things that are like happening. So it's like they're growing big, but so are we. So we want to find that opportune time. So more than likely very early March prior to South by.
That's perfect. That timing works for me. When you have the dates, let me know. I'll put it in my calendar. But let's talk about this film.
Hey, let me just tell my secretary, hey, let's get Chris Gore's hotel room ready if we can. Thank you.
Get me in there. But let's talk about your film, because I feel like one of the best places to have seen it would have been to see it at Mammoth, because of just the very nature that it's a Western. It's a Western that's based on a true story. And I need to get this. And first of all, you really put yourself in you wrote it, directed it, you're in it. And I kind of feel like if your parents had said you're wasting your time in front of the television on Saturday morning watching, Lucky Charms commercials, I would say they're wrong, because that definitely contributed to your accent. You do an accent in the film, an Irish accent that I can't. If I tried to fake one right now, I can't. I'm Irish, and I can't do an Irish accent.
Yeah.
But like to wear that many hats and to pull this off, and a Western alone, okay, it's like one thing to do, like I'm going to do an indie movie where a bunch of people sit in a room and talk. Okay, that's one thing. A Western involves horses, gunplay. There's stunts and fights. I mean, you sort of check off all the boxes of what you would expect from a good, solid Western. You get all that stuff in there, and also flip it. But how true is this story that involves John Wilkes Booth? I want to you got to fill me in on this. And John Wilkes Booth was an actor that I'm sure most people know that, keep up with history, but
Yeah.
But tell me what led to like this true story and then weaving it into the tale that you wanted to tell.
Absolutely. Well, man, if I could only bottle up that ambition now, right, and sell that.
Right.
But that was the thing. It was my first, so I think I was excited to do everything. And to make it your first, sometimes you got to do everything just to get it done. It's like I'm not afraid to put the words down because this is the story I want to tell. I'm not afraid to help pull the right people together to produce this thing. I'm not afraid to step in front of the camera and say I like this character as well. Why build a theme park if you can't ride the rides? And then at the same time, you still got to captain that ship. And I think wanted to tell that story so well and been working on that project through the short and playing it at Mammoth Film Festival back in the day. All those things led me up to that point being as ready as I possibly could as a 24-year-old kid turning 25 while they shot it. But, I wanted to do that for a long time. So I think that was fantastic. But here's how the story came about. So it's called The Legend of Hell's Gate because of this amazing rock structure at Possum Kingdom Lake, Texas. You don't really know it unless you're around that area, but it's a very famous rock structure. And I heard this really cool story that was this Western tale about these cowboys and Indians around Hell's Gate. And these, cowboys got these Indians drunk on their trading and stuff like that, took advantage of them and tried to take off with their loot. And one of the mules fell off the cliff and the Indians caught up to him. And this guy was like, I'll go through the gates of hell before I let him catch me. And I'm like, that needs to be a movie. Like, we can make that a movie. But that fictional tale, which is what the characters, the main three characters you kind of follow are, this is very much an ensemble cast. So that's one tale of the Legend of Hell's Gate. But the things that circle all the way around it and kind of give it its atmosphere are, there's the first recorded gunfight of Doc Holliday intertwined, which is real life history that we recreated that intertwines with these characters. There's the theory that John Wilkes Booth lived out his days in Granbury, Texas. And I'm not ruining anything in the movie. I mean, you can still watch this. I'm giving you the characters so you want to see who they are. It's not like, oh, well, spoiler alert. It's not really a spoiler alert. Kind of a spoiler alert. But anyway, you got John Wilkes Booth. You have a little piece of Jesse James history and stuff in there. There's the characters that are interwoven, I don't want to ruin too much for you, but it's very, very rich in Texas history that is very authentic, intertwined with a legend or a tale of a little bit of folklore, which could or couldn't be true itself. So it takes some liberties in that, but it's an ensemble piece, and it's a lot of fun, man. A lot of great actors in it.
But I also, what I was saying earlier about, like, I just think you're doing a movie with horses is got to be like, that's a challenge. Like, it's not something I would ever wish to do. I mean, I love Westerns.
Sure.
I recently watched, after I watched your film, which is on Amazon Prime, I should let people know if you're listening to this. The movie's on Prime, which everyone has, whether they know it or not. You've got your Prime Video, take advantage of it. But it inspired me, and I watched it. I was like, oh man. And I had to revisit Dances with Wolves. Oh yeah. Costner, which is one of my favorite Westerns because it really is sort of a re-examination of what a Western is and sort of a flip. And it's really, to me, it's the inspiration for Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar.
Oh yeah.
It really comes from Dune, and it also, the Frank Herbert book and the movies.
Yeah.
But also from Dances with Wolves, very much like that. But like, I don't know, can you even make a Western today without like some? I just think the idea of like, okay, we're going to have scenes where people talk to each other. And by the way, there are horses and all this other stuff. It just, you're blown takes just because a horse didn't make. It's one thing if you don't make your mark, but if the horse doesn't make its mark, I mean, how do you manage that?
You bring up an interesting point on that. And I will say what I find interesting, because I find it incredibly challenging today where things are more readily available to actually get a movie made. Mm-hmm. I find myself, this was my first one. So you start your career after your first one. But since then, I've done several movies, but the ones you wanted to try to do independently that we're talking about here with the horses and like, you got to incorporate that budget, have gotten harder. This movie was made 10 years ago. In fact, we were the first Western to ever shoot on the red camera. We were the first ones to ever take Panavision lenses, and they made an adapter for us so they would meld with the red camera because we still wanted that anamorphic look. So I think 10 years ago, the landscape has changed on set to where people are used to shooting on 35, where you come to the set ready. You come picture ready. The wranglers that wrangle these horses, they're the best in the business. These horses have done more movies than the actors have. So you come in, and I remember just having the most amazing crew of all time. A lot of these guys were from Austin, Texas. They were working with Robert Rodriguez and Richard Linklater. I mean, we had Carrie Perkins as our costume designer. She did, Dazed and Confused. You know what I mean? She's like living history. I'm just in awe of her every time I see her. The Wranglers had just come off of 310 to Yuma. You know what I mean? In fact, our gunsman, Thel Reed, literally is Russell Crowe's guy. You know what I mean? We had like the Hands of God from that movie on our set. And we're just like, oh, dude, it's in the trailer. Have you seen it? It's amazing. So I will say where crews were when we shot this movie in 2009 into 10, it was, man, those guys just knew they were the best in the business. And now they've all dispersed, and they're, the chief engineer, doing Olive Rodriguez's stuff, or the main costume person for anything on TBS, The Walking Dead and stuff like that. They're all department heads. You know what I mean? And in our project, they were kind of at the last of that 35 millimeter era. And man, you really brought it to the table back then. And I think we've not necessarily lost that, but the obligations that crew members have, we're on digital. You can do another take. We're on digital. It's fine. Right. It didn't work. We're on digital. It's cool. You can do. We're here all day. Back in the day when it was, those people were like, no, you get it right or you're fired. You know what I mean? So we had that on our set and our crew, and this movie couldn't happen without them. What we did out there was crazy for an indie film. You know what I mean? And the tricks and the stunts and the guns and the blood. There could have been more blood. That'd have been more fun, but that's the Tarantino speaking, I guess.
But that's a good kind of pressure. It's a good kind of pressure of like, you gotta get it right. You don't have this endless. Yeah. I do think that the technology being more accessible and affordable has also compromised other aspects, which are just the preparedness. I read a thing where Spielberg was even saying like that actors don't show up with that sense of preparedness. They're just sort of like, they're winging it a little bit more than they used to. And I think as a director, he's probably not used to that. He's used to the more like you were saying, rehearse, and you show up and you know it. And I've seen actors that like just been fortunate enough to work with some actors like, oh my God, like it's like they're a robot that just perfectly just gives. Yeah. I'm in awe. I should mention you show up as an actor in a bunch of different shows, right? Like, I mean, I get the sense you do a lot of it for fun, but you just sort of pop on like every once in a while. You're doing an acting gig.
I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm just like any red-blooded American. I think acting's the most fun you can have on a movie set. So I never want to lose that. And also I'm not trying to be like, no, I'm an actor. Everybody needs to know it. It's like, dude, if I can do a project a year, I am content. I am happy. I love being in front of the camera, but also I get exhausted by it just like anything else. Like I'm no Daniel Day-Lewis or anything like that, but like if I'm going to show up like that, everything else doesn't exist in the world. It's like, it's about that project because that's what's going to live longer than me sometimes. You know what I mean? Or in this day and age, it used to. I don't know. Everything's so digital. Maybe I'll be in an NFT or something. But it's very, very important, and I still hold that dear. And I think if it wasn't for that, I don't think it would carry over into wanting to do the film festival, carrying over into wanting to be in any kind of movie at any job aspect. I don't mind producing it. It's fun to just be a writer, to sit back and like go and see how other people do it, and then cherry pick those people to be on your team when it's your turn again. It's cool, and I think we've breathed a lot of air into that with the film festival, and then hopefully doing this 10-year anniversary director's cut I'm working on right now as a premiere out there, and bring that cast back together. It'd be so great to see everybody, and let's see a version of this story that you haven't seen yet with the 10-year, but you got to watch it on Amazon Prime right now.
Well, and a final question I got to ask, because it seems like every 10 years they write about the death of the Western, and the Western is probably not something, it's certainly evolved. Where do you think Westerns stand right now as a genre?
It's so difficult because just like you said, to do one right, the bar has been set so high
Right.
with some of these great Western TV shows. And even ones that are I mean, there's still some Westerns that still stand the test of time. Dances with Wolves, there's a 6-hour cut of that. I would love in this day and age to see like the original 6-hour Kevin Costner cut that like showed in a couple movie theaters. You know what I mean? That was like a test screening. It's just like, they're just too long. Cut half of it. Like, I think that would play today. But the new ones, you know, Netflix has made some really cool ones. Man, it's just so tough. I see Ethan Hawke out there a lot, making a lot of consistent Westerns, maybe becoming that new guy that's kind of a staple. I think that's what we look for, is like, I want to see this guy in 10 Westerns, not 10 different guys in 5 Westerns. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they're tough, man, because a lot of people are phoning them in. You know, they're just not good, and it's okay to say that they're just not good. The majority of them, so it dilutes it. And I think one always will stand out when it's really good. The one with Tom Cruise recently, different take on a Western. Thought that was really cool. It didn't feel like a Western, but it didn't have to. I liked the Deadwood movie when it came out. I mean, I don't know. It's tough, man. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was a Western for me.
It was, in a way. And it was about the end of an era. I mean, it was I don't know. That was my favorite movie last year.
Mine too. Yeah, question. I saw it 4 times. Like, embarrassing amount.
I bought it. It's one of the last Blu-rays.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice.
Tanner Beard, thank you for being on the Film Threat Podcast, and thank you for all your hard work supporting independent filmmakers with the Mammoth Film Festival. I'll be there if I get invited. I'll be there.
You're invited, man. Let's do it. Let's figure out what panels are going down. We'll get it going. We'll announce very soon the exact dates, and we'll share that with you.
In my calendar. Thanks again, Tanner.
All right, man. Thank you.